welcoming you in our first lecture in our interesting and inshallah enjoyable course, and inshallah quite easy course to all of you. So again, let me remind you, this is the title of our course, Modern Drama, and this is my name, Dr. Ibrahim Elshinnawy. Okay, now let's right now start our first lecture. This is the first lecture that we are going to start in our course, and it is as if you still remember what we said in our introductory lecture, that the first item that we need to study is an introduction about modern drama. Of course, we cannot study a course entitled Modern Drama without having an introduction about what is modern drama and what are the main concepts, the main ideas that we have in this drama. Okay, modern drama, after the death of Shakespeare and his contemporaries, drama in England suffered a decline. Decline means that like a kind of failure. So after Shakespeare and his contemporaries, drama in England suffered a decline for 2 centuries. Even Congreve in the 17th century and Sheridan and Goldsmith in the 18th could not restore drama to the position it held during the Elizabethan age, which means that drama during the Elizabethan age was quite flourishing, it was quite successful, and it was quite great. But right after the death of Shakespeare, we find that there is a kind of drop, there is a kind of decline in the drama in the 17th and 18th century. It was revived, which means that revive means as if getting back to life again, as if it is just getting healthier again. Revived means to restore its vividness and its flourishing once more. So it was revived, drama was revived, was become not down and become up again, starting to rise up again, only in the last decade of the 19th century. So during Shakespeare was during the 16th century, but during the 17th and 18th century there was a drop, there was a decline. But starting again in the last decade, as it is written in front of you here, that during the last decade of the 19th century, drama starting to rise up again and to revive, to restore its strength and to restore its power once more. And then there appeared dramatists who have now given it a respectable place in English literature. So these dramatists gave power and gave strength to drama once more after that decline, after that drop it had during the 17th and the 18th century. Okay, now please let's move to the next slide. 2 important factors. Why drama revived? Why drama again getting healthier and getting higher? Why? Because of this. Because of these 2 important factors that you have. 2 important factors were responsible for the revival of drama, for making drama up again and increasing more, restoring its strength, as you said, and its power once more. These 2 important factors were responsible for the revival of drama in 1890s. The first factor, the first element for reviving the drama, one was the influence of Ibsen. This is the great dramatist, as we said, that we are going to study for him inshallah at Doll's House. He was one of the main factors that helped in making drama up again and making drama reviving once more. So one of the influence of Ibsen, was the influence of Ibsen, the great Norwegian dramatist, under which the English dramatists like Bernard Shaw claim the right to discuss serious social and moral problems in a calm, sensible way. And then the second, this is the first factor. for reviving the drama, for the revival of the drama. The second factor for the revival of the drama was the cynical atmosphere prevailing at that time, which allowed men like Oscar Wilde to treat the moral assumptions of the Victorian age with frivolity and make polite fun of their conventionality, prudishness, or smugness. So Oscar Wilde to treat the moral assumptions of what? Of the Victorian age, of the aristocratic people, with their prudishness and smugness. The first factor, which is the influence of Ibsen, the first factor gave rise to what we call comedy of ideas or purpose. So the first factor for the reviving the drama, it gave rise to comedy of ideas or purpose. The second factor, which is gave rise again or revive what? The comedy of manners or the artificial comedy. Okay, so this is an important actually page line that you need to pay attention to these two factors. It's very important to know why drama revived again at the end of the 19th century, because of these two factors. The first one, which is the influence of Ibsen, and the second one, which is the cynical atmosphere which prevailed during that time and helped some dramatists like Oscar Wilde to write freely about the prudence and smugness of the Victorian age. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Under the influence of Ibsen, the serious drama in England from 1890s onward ceased to deal with themes remote in time and place. Please try to understand this. Under the influence of Ibsen, the serious drama in England from 1890 onward up ceased to deal with themes. So drama starting from Ibsen ceased. Cease means stopped. To do what? To deal with themes remote in time and place, which means that drama right with Ibsen stopped to deal with some themes which are not related to the reality, which are not related to the time and to the place, which are not representing the age, which are not representing the place and the age in which these dramas were written, right? So he had taught men, Ibsen, he is referring here to Ibsen, he had taught men that the real drama, and this is what Ibsen did, he taught the following dramatists that the real drama must do what? Must deal with human emotions, not just discussing some social or some problems which are not related to reality, as I said, but these drama, the drama that we wrote should be dealing with human emotions, and not only with this, with things which are near and dear to ordinary men and women. And this is very important. Since the beginning of the drama of Ibsen, drama focused on this, on ordinary men and women. If you read any of the plays of William Shakespeare, you will find that Shakespeare wrote only about the elite people, the first class people. You find that King Lear, you find King Lear, who is of course a king. You find Hamlet, who is a prince. You find Macbeth, who is an army general. So all these are elite people. You find Antony and Cleopatra, all those are elite people, first class people, which Ibsen refused to do this in his dramas. He concentrated in his dramas only on what? On ordinary men and women, because he believed that those people, they deserve to write something about them. Why? Because those are the people that we are living with. No one of us can meet a king or a prince every day, right? These are things that can happen accidentally, by accident I mean. But you can meet many of your friends, many of your colleagues, many of your relatives, many of the people in the street every day. So he said that this is the thing that we need to write about, those ordinary people who we meet every day in our life. So as you said, that with things which are near and dear to ordinary men and women, the new dramatists, those who come after Ibsen, thus gave up. They left what? The melodramatic romanticism and pseudo-classical remoteness of the predecessors, and began to treat, so the dramatists after Ibsen, they began to treat in their plays the actual English life. They become more concerned with the problems, the social problems that the English life had at that time. First of the aristocratic class, then of the middle class, and finally of the laboring class. So the concern now moved from mainly to be only about aristocratic class, and moved to deal with middle class, and not only this, also it moved to deal with the laboring class. Okay. This treatment of actual life made the drama more and more a drama of ideas, because it's dealing with life now, dealing with the ideas, which were for the most part revolutionary, directed against past literary models, as we said before, current social conventions, and the prevailing morality of Victorian England. The new dramatists, those new dramatists who come right after Ibsen, the new dramatists dealt mainly with the problems of labor and of youth, fighting against romantic love. This is not a common or a popular theme that was dealt with in these plays, the romantic love, and of course the romantic love was dealt with extensively during Shakespeare. Capitalism and parental authority, which were the characteristics features of Victorianism. So Victorianism, during the Victorian age, the main concern was about these themes, like romantic love, capitalism, parental authority, or all these things. The new dramatists, they were not concerned with this. They did not pay much attention to such things. Okay, the characters in their plays are constantly questioning, restless and dissatisfied. So all the time their characters are asking questions, they want to know something. Also they are dissatisfied, they are not accepting the status quo, they are not accepting the prevailing situations and the prevailing circumstances that are occurring in the society. Young men struggle to throw off the trammels of Victorian prejudice. Following the example of Nora, and this is one of the examples to be given about modern drama in Ibsen, A Doll's House, and this is the play that we are going, inshallah, to study. Our main character in this play is a female, and her name is Nora. Now, to give an example about what we have just said, that Nora, who leaves her dull, domineering husband, who seeks to crush her personality and keep her permanently in a childlike, irresponsible state. The young women in these plays join eagerly the feminist movement and the glory in a new-found liberty. Thus, these dramatists introduced nature and life in drama. So these dramatists introduced nature and life in drama, and loved to make them play their great parts on the stage. Okay, in the new drama of ideas, action became slow and frequently interrupted. So we will not find that action goes smoothly without any interruption. No, this is not happening. Moreover, inner conflict was substituted for outer conflict, and this is another movement which happened in drama. You find that before this, The dramatist like Shakespeare, for example, in Hamlet, was concentrating more on these outer conflicts between Hamlet and also the king. Also, Shakespeare dealt with the inner conflict, the internal conflict of Hamlet. But we find in modern drama they do not pay much attention to the outer conflict. They are concerned, they concentrate more on these inner conflict. And of course, you know, these inner conflict are related to psychology and the psychological analysis. So they were mainly concerned with these psychological and these inner conflicts that are happening inside their characters. So with the result, the drama became quieter than the romantic drama of the previous years. The new researches in the field of psychology, and this is one of the reasons why they concentrated on these psychological analysis, because of this, because there were during that time some new researches in the field of psychology helped the dramatists in the study of the soul, of the inner side of the character, for the expression of which they had to resort to symbols. Okay, by means of symbolism, the dramatist could raise the dark and even sordid themes to artistic levels. The emphasis on the inner conflict led some of the modern dramatists to make their protagonists not men but unseen forces, and this is something also related and should be kept to only to the modern drama. So the emphasis on the inner conflict led some of the modern dramatists to make their protagonists not men but unseen forces. So you feel that the characters are fighting with, and they are having some conflicts, some kind of battles with some unseen forces, not some characters on the stage, thereby making wider and larger the sphere of drama. If you read, as I said, as I advised you before, if you read the silver books, and if you read some of the modern plays, you will feel that those characters are fighting with the unknown, something that might come from outside. They do not know, unseen forces, like the plays of Harold Pinter and all those people. So those people are fighting, and the characters are fighting and are waiting for something to happen, something that they are afraid of because it is unseen and it is unknown to them. Okay, now in the field of non-serious comedy, there was a revival. Also, some non-serious comedies, there was also a revival in the 20th century of the comedy of manners. So we have comedy of ideas, as I said, and we have also what we call comedy of manners. So in the field of non-serious comedy, there was a revival in 20th century of the comedy of manners. The modern period, to a great extent, is like the Augustan period because of the return of the witty satirical comedy which reached its climax in the hands of Congreve in 1700. Though this new comedy of manners is often purely fanciful and dependent for its effect upon wit, at times it becomes cynical and bitter when dealing with social problems. Now, because these comedies they deal with some of the social problems, they become bitter and they become, of course, more serious. Okay, mainly it is satirical because with the advancement of civilization, modern life has become artificial, and satire flourishes in a society which becomes over-civilized and loses touch with the elemental conditions and primitive impulses. Okay, the two important dramatists who took a predominant part in the revival of drama in the last decade of the 19th century. So we have, before we said that we have Ibsen, and this is those two dramatists. They, in the last decade, at the end of the 19th century, we have two important dramatists who took predominant part in the revival of drama in the last decade of the 19th century. Those two dramatists were George Bernard Shaw and Oscar Wilde. So those two dramatists, they could help in reviving the drama during the last decade, or in the last decade of the 19th century. Okay, Oscar Wilde, and both Bernard Shaw and Oscar Wilde, they were not English, but they were not Englishmen, I mean, but they were Irishmen. And Ibsen, of course, as it is mentioned before, was a Norwegian dramatist. Bernard Shaw was the greatest practitioner of the comedy of ideas. So the best one to write something in the form of comedy of ideas was Bernard Shaw. But Congreve, on the other hand, Oscar Wilde, that of the new comedy of manners, he was the best to write something about the comedy of manners. Okay, Shaw, who was a great thinker, represented the Puritan side of the Anglo-Irish tradition. So Shaw was representing the Puritan side of the Anglo-Irish tradition. Wilde, on the other hand, a life of luxury. He was representing the life of luxury, and the frivolity. Was not a deep thinker as Shaw. So he was presenting in his plays that life of luxury and frivolity of the Socratic people, and his attitude to life was essentially a playful one. Okay. The success of Oscar Wilde as a writer of artificial comedy, or the comedy of manners, was mainly due to his being a social entertainer, and it is mainly as entertainment that his plays have survived. Wilde may be considered, therefore, as the father of the comedy of pure entertainment. So this is for Wilde. He was the father of the comedy of pure entertainment, as Shaw is the father of the comedy of ideas. So Wilde, he was the father of comedy of pure, just for the sake of love, pure entertainment. But Shaw, he was the father of the comedy, but the comedy of what? The comedy of ideas. So Wilde was the father of pure, the comedy of pure entertainment, and Shaw is the father of the comedy of ideas. Other modern writers who have followed Wilde directly, some people wrote in the same way, like Oscar Wilde, like something about the comedy of manners, are like Somerset Maugham and Noel Coward. So those two were following the same policy in writing, with the same as Oscar Wilde. Okay. But the artificial comedy of the last 50 years in England does not compare well with the artificial comedy of the Restoration. So the reason is that the 20th century, in the 20th century, there is a lot of confusion and skepticism about social life. So that's why, because of that confusion and skepticism about social lives, social values. Moreover, social manners change so rapidly in the modern time. So social manners, they change so rapidly in the modern time, that the comedy of manners grows out of date. We find that the comedy of manners grows out of date, which means was about to finish, not to exist anymore. So out of date rapidly than any other type of drama. Why that comedy of manners grows out of date? Because, as we said, that this type of comedy was concentrating mainly on the prudeness and smugness of the aristocratic people, and of course not all people are interested in reading something about how the lifestyle of the aristocratic people and how they live and so on. So that's why we find that this type of comedy, which is the comedy of manners, we find it grows out of date, which means that not many people were concerned or were interested in reading such a thing. So that the comedy of manners grows out of date more rapidly than any other type of drama. Okay? This is not the case with the comedy of ideas. So we find if the comedy of manners grows out of date, we find the case is completely different with the comedy of ideas. So we have, again, let's remember that we have two types of comedy. We have the comedy of manners and we have the comedy of ideas. The comedy of manners grows out of date. Not that many people were concerned about it, but the case is still here. The comedy of ideas here is different. It does not did not have the same state and the same case as the comedy of manners. So this is not the case with the comedy of ideas or social comedy. George Bernard Shaw, the father of the comedy of ideas, was a genius. His intellectual equipment was far greater than that of any of his contemporaries. He alone had understood the greatness of Ibsen. He had understood the greatness of, Bernard Shaw was greatly affected and influenced by Ibsen. So why? Because of this. He alone had understood the greatness of Ibsen. So he could know the greatness of Ibsen, and that's why he read his plays so carefully. I'm sorry, just a moment, please. Thank you. And he decided that, like Ibsen's, his plays would also be the vehicles of ideas. So he decided to follow the same path by Ibsen, to write something about ideas, that his plays should convey some ideas and not just to be for the sake of fun and for the sake of entertainment. But he knew well that the plays should be like vehicles, like means of ideas, to convey ideas to the people in the society. Okay. But unlike Ibsen's grim and serious temperament, so we find that the Ibsen in his plays is like grim and serious in most of his plays. Shaw was characterized by jest and verbal wit. So find in the plays of Shaw, there is jest and verbal wit. He also had a genuine artistic gift for form, and he could not tolerate any clumsiness in construction. So he was against any kind of clumsiness in construction. For this purpose, he had studied every detail of theatrical workmanship. In each of his plays, he presented a certain problem connected with modern life, and his characters discuss it thoroughly. Okay. Now, in order to make his ideas still more explicit, he added prefaces to his plays. So we find that his plays, the plays of Bernard Shaw, they do not start just like this with Act 1, Act 2 and 3, but always he added what we call prefaces. Prefaces like an introduction about the play, the characters, and this, in which what usually he wrote in these prefaces, in which he explored the theme more fully. So he needed to concentrate more to show the people before entering the play. He discussed the theme presented and the ideas presented in this play in which they are going to read. So the main burden of his plays is that the civilized man must either develop or perish. Other modern dramatists who followed the example of Bernard Shaw and wrote comedies of ideas, like Barker, Galsworthy, James Burdeye, Priestley, Sir James Barrie, and John Masefield, but none of them attained the standard reached by Shaw, although they tried to write something about him, but they could not reach his level. Besides the artificial comedy, the comedy and the comedy of ideas, we have another type of comedy, of drama, was developed in England under the influence of the Irish dramatic movement, whose originators were Lady Gregory and W.P. Yeats. The two important dramatists belonging to this movement are Synge and O'Casey. There has been the revival. We have also something about the revival of poetic drama in the 20th century, whose most important practitioner was T.S. Eliot. Other modern dramatists who have also written poetic plays are Christopher Fry, Stephen Phillips, and Stephen Spender also. Most of the poetic plays, poetic means these plays that were written in the form of poetry. So most of the poetic plays written in modern times have a religious theme. So most of these plays which were written during the modern times were concerned more about these religious theme, and they attempt to preach the doctrine of course, Christianity at that time. Okay, now let's have an idea about those dramatists that we need to know. We will start with our great dramatist, our main concern, Henrik Ibsen. As we said, that we are going to inshallah study his best play, A Doll's House. So Henrik Ibsen is considered the father of modern realistic drama. So we consider him as the father of modern realistic drama. This does not mean that he started his dramatic career by a representation of real life problems. He underwent certain developments, beginning with experimental plays that were indebted to the French well-made play of Scribe and to romantic and traditional patterns. This is clear in Lady Inger of Istrat, Love's comedy The Pretenders. Okay, now with his voluntary exile to Rome, he embarked upon his second stage, which produced the poetic dramas of Brand and Be Giant. With his stay in Germany, the third stage, and this is the third stage, started, namely the realistic social stage, which has brought him world fame. and which has resulted in the birth of a new drama. Very well presented. Of course, in A Doll's House, Ghosts, An Enemy of the People, The Wild Duck, and others. In these plays, Ibsen treated social problems. We find in his plays he dealt with social problems that reflect his own inner needs on the one hand, and the Zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, on the other. Being advance of the latter, he did not try to adjust himself to it, but rather to adjust it to himself, to his own demands and values. These burning social issues were expressed in realistic techniques, which is based on the abandonment of verse in favor of everyday prose. The realistic portrayal of characters to the extent of drawing on living models, the emphasis on discussion rather than external action, and these are the characteristics of his plays. We find him that he is concentrating more on realistic portrayal of the characters, the extent of the drawing of the living models, the emphasis on discussion rather than external action, and the use, or rather the perfection, of technical devices such as retrospective method, which gives the scope to the clash of ideas and narration rather than presentation of events. Now, this is my habit in presenting my course. At the end of each lecture, I'll give you what we call model questions. Model questions, which means that you will have in the final similar questions, but remember, this is not the question that you will have in the final. The questions that you are going to have in my lectures, not the same questions that you will have in the final, but you will have similar like this. Okay, let's see how I put my questions. So how I choose them. After the death of Shakespeare and his contemporaries, drama in England suffered a lot for 2 centuries. So the very beginning of the play, the very beginning, if you go back to the first slide in this lecture, you will find this typical sentence. After the death of Shakespeare and his contemporaries, drama in England suffered what? You will find this word, for 2 centuries. Success, flourishing, decline, and progress. Of course, the right answer is the word decline. So, which means that I'm getting some parts from the materials that you have here and taking some words to and giving instead a space and ask you about this word, which means that once you read the materials in a good way, it will be quite easy for you to of course to understand, to answer the questions. The second question is question number 2. Drama was revived in the last decade of the, and this is again a sentence mentioned in the materials. Drama was revived in the last decade of the A, 16th century, B, 17th century, C, 18th century, D, 19th century. Of course, the right answer is letter D, which is drama was revived in the last decade of the 19th century. Okay, this is the end of my lecture. Hope now you get a good idea about modern drama. We started with Henrik Ibsen as one of the modern dramatists. Inshallah, in the second lecture, which you are going to have right after this one, you will have more about these modern dramatists, inshallah, to get an overall idea, to get a comprehensive idea about drama and those modern dramatists. Thank you very much. All the best to all of you. See you inshallah in my second lecture. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.